For 40 years, this American family hid a room no one was allowed to enter. No one in Hollow Creek, Pennsylvania, talked about the Mercer house anymore. Not because it was haunted, but because it reminded people of something they had all agreed to forget. The house stood at the end of Old Ridge Road, half a mile from the nearest neighbor. A 2-story wooden farmhouse built in 1891, surrounded by dead trees and a rusted iron fence that had long stopped serving its purpose. For 40 years, every owner changed, but the room remained locked. In October 1989, Daniel Mercer returned to Hollow Creek after a phone call he had expected for years. His father was dead. The voice on the phone was flat, professional, emotionless. "Your father passed away in his sleep. Natural causes. You are listed as next of kin." Daniel hadn't been back since 1968. 21 years. He had built a life in Ohio, a job, a wife who left, a quiet routine that didn't ask questions. But Hollow Creek did. The drive back felt longer than it should. The road narrowed as he entered town. Familiar signs appeared. Gas, groceries, church hall faded, all unchanged. When he reached Old Ridge Road, his hands tightened on the steering wheel. The Mercer house stood exactly as he remembered, except older and quieter. The front door resisted when Daniel pushed it open. Dust floated in the air like it had been waiting. Inside, the house smelled of old wood, paper, and something faintly metallic. His father's coat still hung by the door, shoes placed neatly underneath. No signs of struggle, no signs of life. Daniel moved slowly through the rooms. The living room? The kitchen. The dining area where his mother used to hum while setting the table. She died when Daniel was 13. Official cause, illness. Unofficially, no one talked about it. But there was something missing. Daniel stopped at the bottom of the staircase. At the top was the hallway, and at the end of the hallway the door, painted white. No handle, no keyhole, just smooth wood and fresh paint, redone every few years. The same door his father had forbidden him from approaching, the same door everyone avoided. Daniel felt it again, that familiar pressure in his chest. As a child, Daniel had asked once, "What's in that room?" His father had turned pale. "Nothing you need." "But why is it locked?" His father's voice hardened. "You do not go near it, ever." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a rule, and rules in the Mercer house were not broken. Every Sunday, his father repainted the door, even when the rest of the house fell apart. Even when money ran low, even when his mother was dying, the door stayed perfect. Daniel slept in his old bedroom that night. The house creaked as if breathing. At exactly 2:17 a.m., he woke up, not from a sound, but from the feeling of being observed. He lay still, staring at the ceiling. Then he heard it, a slow, deliberate knock, from upstairs, from the hallway, from behind the door. One knock, pause, not loud, not violent, polite, as if waiting. Daniel didn't move, didn't breathe. The knocking stopped. At 2:19 a.m., silence returned. Daniel didn't sleep again. The next morning, Daniel went into town. People recognized him instantly, too quickly. Their smiles faded when they heard his last name, Mercer. An old woman at the diner froze mid. "You're Harold Mercer's boy." Daniel nodded. She lowered her voice. "You should sell that house." Another man whispered. "Some things don't like being alone." No one explained further. They never did. Back in the house, Daniel searched his father's study. Behind the bookshelf, he found a wooden box. Inside were journals, decades worth. The handwriting changed over time, became shakier, angrier. The entries repeated the same sentence. The room must remain sealed. One entry dated 1974 read, "It speaks less now, but it remembers me." Another from 1981, "Daniel must never know. This ends with me." Daniel closed the journal. His hands were shaking. At 2:17 a.m., the knocking returned. 3 knocks this time. Slower, closer. Daniel stood at the foot of the stairs, staring up at the hallway. The door was no longer perfectly white. The paint pulsed slightly, as if something behind it was pressing outward. Daniel whispered, "Dad." The knocking stopped. Something whispered back, not in words, but in understanding. The next journal entry broke everything. Dated 1949. Before Daniel was born. Before the rule. Before the door. We should never have built over the cellar. It was already here. It learned her voice first. Daniel dropped the journal, his mother's voice. Daniel pried the door open at dawn. No resistance. No lock. It had never been locked. Inside was not a room. It was a space that didn't belong. Walls covered in scratch marks, children's drawings, names, and in the center a mirror, not reflecting Daniel. Reflecting the hallway, the house, the past, and behind him someone breathing. Daniel didn't turn around. He already knew what standing behind him would not look. Like Dot, the mirror showed the hallway exactly as it was, narrow, dim, familiar. But something was wrong with the reflection. The hallway in the mirror was older. The wallpaper peeled in places Daniel remembered being smooth. The floorboards bent inward, as if softened by years of weight, and in the mirror's reflection. The staircase was occupied. Someone was standing there, not fully, just enough to be present. Daniel stepped back. The air inside the room felt thicker, like breathing through damp cloth. The smell returned metallic. The kind of smell hospitals try to hide. He whispered, "Mom." The word didn't echo. It was absorbed. Behind him, the breathing grew slower, heavier, almost thoughtful. Daniel turned. The room was empty. The mirror still showed the hallway, but now, in the reflection, the figure stood closer. Daniel stumbled backward out of the room and slammed the door shut. It closed easily. Too easily. He spent the next hours tearing through the house, looking for answers his father had buried. Floor plans, old permits, anything. In the basement, behind shelves of canned food from the 1970s, he found a loose section of wall. Brick, newer than the rest. Someone had sealed it deliberately. He broke through with a hammer. Behind the bricks was not earth. It was a stairwell, leading down. The air that came up from it was cold and wet, like underground water and rot. This was the cellar his father had written about, the one they built over, the one that was already here. In the town records office, Daniel requested property documents going back as far as possible. The clerk hesitated, then sighed. "You're opening old wounds. The Mercer land had belonged to another family before, 1891. The Haley family. All 6 members died within 10 years of moving in. Official records. Church records said something else. Affliction. Uncontrollable speech. Hearing voices that didn't belong to anyone alive. Read, the cellar answers when spoken to. It remembers names. The Hale house burned down mysteriously. The cellar survived. The Mercers built over it. Daniel returned home and opened the last journal. His father's handwriting in the final pages was barely legible. She said it wanted a mother. It learned her kindness. She fed it her voice, not knowing what it would become. When she fell ill, it started speaking for her. Daniel remembered his mother's sickness differently now. The way she whispered at night. The way she sometimes answered questions he hadn't asked. The way she stood at the top of the stairs, staring at the sealed door, smiling. She hadn't been sick. She had been listening. And eventually she had gone where it wanted her. The house no longer waited until night. Daniel heard footsteps at noon, whispers from empty rooms, his own voice calling his name from places he wasn't in. At 2:17 a.m., the knocking changed. It became scratching. Slow, patient, like something trying to remember how hands worked. The mirror upstairs no longer reflected Daniel at all. Only the hallway, and the woman standing at the top of the stairs, his mother, smiling, mouth moving without sound. Daniel confronted the town council. The old members, the ones who had been there for decades, they didn't deny it. They never did. "You don't destroy places like that," one man said. "You contain them." The town helped seal the cellar. They helped paint the door. They helped forget. Every Mercer man became the caretaker, until the house decided otherwise. The room opened itself that night. The door swung inward without a sound. The mirror was gone. In its place stood the hallway as it should have been, warm, lit, familiar. At the top of the stairs stood his mother, whole, healthy, waiting. "It's lonely," she said. Her voice sounded right. "To right? It remembers you now." Daniel stepped forward. The house sighed, satisfied. The journal entry found years later read, "The room doesn't trap you. It convinces you to stay." The Mercer house was sold. The new owners repainted the door, white, fresh. No handle, no keyhole. At night, sometimes the knocking is polite. Always. Hollow Creek still exists, but no one builds basements anymore. And no one asks about the room. Because some secrets don't die. They wait.